There are more than 1 million international students in the US. That is a big number. Now, we know that adjusting to life in a new country is definitely a challenge. Social and cultural changes often take time to adjust. However, this year, the pandemic has created far more challenges for international students in the United States, as well as those students who plan to come here in the future. To address this concern, today we are talking to Samuel Paila and Gabriel Perez, founders of Stephen Mentor, a platform to help international students adapt and thrive in the United States. Welcome, Samuel and Gabriel.
Thank you so much. We're super happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for us to be here.
Same here. And we have Major Sunil joining us from Hyderabad, India. I know it's pretty late right now, and I love how technology is bringing us all together from different places. Gabriel is joining us from Brazil. Is it?
Hola.
Hola. Oh, sorry, my bad. Okay. And Samuel is joining us from Iowa. I'm Rebecca joining you from Richardson, Texas, and we have Major Sunil joining us from Hyderabad, India.
Hi guys. Welcome to the show.
Answer, or one of you all can answer. So at present, given the current situation, what do you think are the biggest challenges that international students face, and how has the COVID impacted international students?
Do you want to get that one, Gabriel, or?
Go ahead and address that, and I'm just going to add a point
so,
to that.
I would say there are two main aspects to how COVID is impacting international students. Well, three actually. One, I think it's the most obvious one, is the whole legal side of things. I don't know if you guys were able to follow what was happening or what is still happening with some of the regulations.
Yeah.
But sometime in, I think, July or June, the administration announced that any international student that was going to have classes fully online was not going to be able to return. There was a huge backlash from the community, thanks to a lawsuit by Harvard and MIT and a bunch of other universities that also joined the conjunct lawsuit. They were able to roll that back. But still, for instance, international students, incoming international students, so those who are coming to the US for the first time, who have classes fully online, are not able to enter the US yet. There are also regulations around travel bans. So Brazil's case, where international students from Brazil cannot come back to the US, cannot enter the US, because they have been in Brazil for the past 14 days, and there is a travel ban in Brazil still. So things that affecting international students, there are consequences of the pandemic. So that's one. The other aspect is overall just adaptation and social life in the US. A very important part of the college experience in the US for a domestic student or for an international student is the chance to interact with other people, interact with colleagues, professors, go to events, go to conferences, networking, and all of those things. It's super important. But now with the pandemic, many of the international students, the either freshman or sophomore or even first year master's students, whether or not they are in the US and whether or not they're taking classes online, they're losing a lot of chances to build some of those personal connections that are going to be super valuable in the future. And I would say the last issue, and the one that we're trying to address the most, is when it comes to finding jobs. So the whole graduating class of 2020 graduated in the middle of a pandemic, and the international students that were graduating in 2020, those struggled even more than international students usually do. So international students struggle more than domestic students to find jobs in the US. Now in the middle of a pandemic, that struggle to find a job in the US as an international student just got even higher. So all the effort that you needed to do, all the extra work you needed to do as an international student to find a job, now you probably have to do that 2 times, 3 times, because it is like the market is super competitive right now for jobs, and you really need to like start early, know what you're doing, have those connections, because finding a job in the US is hard, period. Finding a job in the US as an international student right now in the middle of a pandemic is incredibly hard.
So absolutely. Gabriel, do you have something you want to add to that?
I think Sam covered pretty well everything, but there's one point as well that is not currently happening, but Stephen Mentor actually took the initiative of creating the Help an International Student, Adopt International Student program back in March, April, and May. We created this program where we were matching international students that were not able to go back to their home countries with Americans that were able to help them either financially or emotionally, through like being a conversation buddy or just donating some money to help with groceries and rent and some important expenses. And we were very happy that we could help over 60 international students during this time. So that's also a problem that international students were facing due to the pandemic. And we in Student Mentor, we are happy that we could collaborate with them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to bounce off of that 1 second, I think also back then it was a lot worse because all of the international students were here and they were deciding, okay, am I going to stay? Am I going to go home? And those students who remained here were like in lockdown alone, away from their families. Many colleges shut down their residence halls, so many international students pretty much were displaced. So that was super hard. Emotional challenge was hard, and I would say that the emotional challenge is still a big portion of the challenges international students are facing for sure.
Mm-hmm. So how does Student Mentor come in? If you can give me a little bit background about what Student Mentor does and how it's helping students.
Deborah, we can get that.
All right. I think Steven, when we first created Student Mentor, the idea was to help international students to adapt in the United States. As international students, being international students, me, Sam, and other partners as well, we live the struggle of being an international student in the United States, and we find out that it would be very helpful to create a program, to create a platform, a company that we could help other international students to try to drive the United States to be more successful here, and so they don't need to face all the challenges that me, Sam, and other international students have faced before. So that was the first idea when we created Student Mentor, which was to help international students adapt in the country. But right now we are, as Sam said, the main issue is to help that we are facing is to help international students to find jobs in America. We all know that it's very hard from the legal part, and also international students also lack on soft skills and a little bit on technical skills. So we are actually trying to help them to break this skill gap and help them to get this job. So that's what we are actually doing right now. If Sam want to add up anything.
It was a transition from helping international students with their adaptation process in the US. And when coronavirus happened, we were forced to pivot the company and to switch directions, because clearly, well, we knew that the incoming class of international students for this year was going to be a lot lower, a lot smaller. So we knew that we should be doing something else. We looked for other problems and we realized, oh, wow, this whole class of a couple 100,000 international students that are graduating in 2020 are going to struggle a lot to find a job. So let's do something to help these people. So we did some research and we found out that most international students graduating in American universities do not lack technical skills. They know their stuff. They know how to do what they studied. The main issue, however, that they often lack is that they don't understand how the process of finding a job in the US works, either from the cultural side or from the legal side. And they also lack those, as Gabriel was saying, social and soft skills necessary for them to build the connections that would later give them the opportunities. So halfway through the pandemic, I would say around June or so, a little bit earlier actually, we decided, okay, we're going to launch this 10-week training program called Job Ready in 10 Weeks to help international students prepare and develop the skills that they need to find a job in the US. We actually had a lot of students from India, some 20-some students joining us from India. Many of them were incoming international students. Some of them were current international students. Some of them were about to graduate. Some of them were recently graduated. So we had a very wide variety of demographic there. And it was an amazing program. We were able to help these students actually develop some of those skills. Some of those students actually went on to find jobs already, build personal brands, start to get their names out there, build incredible networks on LinkedIn, and so on. So that was kind of the most recent program that we launched. Right now, we're focusing on developing a software, a platform, an actual web application to help these international students find jobs and kind of guide them through the process of, okay, here's where you're at, here are the skills that you have, here are the skills that you need to be able to find the job that you want to find, and here's how you get there. So that's pretty much what we're working on building right now. So it's been a long story, starting with helping them adapt to the US and adapt, assimilate to the culture, to the academic system, pivoting to, in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, with this training program that we launched, and now is taking that then to the next step, to the next level, building this software to actually guide them through their whole professional development journey and job search journey.
My question is, you know, as we see it from here, the international students probably are facing two challenges. On one side, due to the pandemic, there's loss of jobs. I mean, their jobs are not easy to come by. On the other side, the current administration in the US is constantly changing, various laws and regulations, which is regarding jobs and international students. So, of the two, which is a bigger worry for international students?
I would say that for some international students, um, the the job losses, all this this struggle to find jobs, um, are the biggest problem right now, because as Sam was saying, almost over 100,000 international students were graduating this year, and so for these students, I'm pretty sure that the problems with finding jobs and are definitely the biggest issue for them. But as international students like me, I'm struggling in Brazil. I'm stuck in Brazil due to these regulations, to these changes that the administration has been doing in the regulations. So I would say there's two groups of people, of international students. They are having trouble issues with these two biggest problems that you just mentioned.
So it's a split house. It's a divided house. There is no one problem to go with it. Some of them are facing problems with the ever-changing rules. The other are people probably who are still in US. They are struggling with finding jobs to go by, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with the Gabriel 100%. It depends on the situation of the international student. But just one point that I want to add to that is uh, it while there are students are going to be worrying about some students are going to be worrying about the administration and the rules more, and some students are going to be struggling with finding jobs more. I think any international student who may be watching this or who may get to see this, they should be thinking through not necessarily what affects them the most. Of course, that's an important thing to think through. But at the same time, I think international students should be focusing on what they can control, because that's a big challenge, and that's something that we're really trying to advise our students. When it comes to regulation, when it comes to the administration, when it comes to laws, that's so outside of your hands. That's so beyond your control. There's nothing you can do, honestly. Well, other than probably trying to like advocate and post on social media and whatever, there's very little to nothing that you can do to change the regulation and to change, for instance, the travel ban in Brazil, or very little that you can do to change a new regulation that the administration rolled out that harms international students. On the contrary, even though it is super hard to find jobs in the US right now as an international student, that is within your control. You can prepare better. You can be more qualified. You can have better connections. You can learn the soft skills that you need to learn. You can learn the process. You can try to network with more employers. All of those are within your control. So I would say, even though you may be heavily affected by the regulations, focus on what you can control. So try to become a better candidate. Try to become a candidate that is impossible to say no to. So that's something I would keep. I would suggest an international student who may be watching this, focus on what you can control.
Absolutely, and I think all international students need to hear that, especially during this time. And it's not said enough. It's not enough out there that there are things that you can control instead of worrying about the current situation. Just piggybacking on that, Samuel, I want to know if you have any advice for international students who are planning to come here in the next semester, because as you mentioned, there are a lot of students who were unable to make their visit here because of the pandemic, and they've moved to virtual, they've taken virtual and remote learning. They may plan to come when things get better, when travel becomes easier. What advice would you have?
Start early. The biggest regret international students face is they leave their professional development and networking building to happen only when they're about to graduate. So most international students come here, study super hard, they ace all of their grades, they have a perfect GPA, they get to the time of graduation, they get their OPT, they start looking for jobs, and they realize, wow, maybe my grades are not going to be that thing that is going to get me the job. Maybe I need this whole other side that I didn't really have, that I never developed. I don't even know any American professional. I don't have a network here. Now what do I do? And then they start networking in the last 3 months before their unemployment time expires. So I would say for any international student who is about to come to the US, start now. Start building connections now. Start putting your work out there. Start sharing your work with the world. Start connecting with American professionals. I want to give an example of one of our students in our previous class of job ready in 10 weeks. His name is Tanmay. He's from India. He is not in the US yet. He's an incoming international student, I think for spring 2021 or for fall 2021. He already started a personal brand, because that's something that we really talk a lot about in the program. Start a personal brand, create a personal brand, start sharing your content, start a project. He started a personal brand. He's going by the name of Curious Tanmay. And what he's doing is basically posting a lot of interesting stuff on data science and just technology overall, but also posting a lot about international students and international student journey. Something else that he's doing is he created a little series on his Instagram channel called Talks with Tanmay. And basically he's interviewing a different international student professional in the US every week. So he's talked to software engineers who are working in the Bay Area. He has talked to, I guess, financial advisors, more software engineers, and he's already building a network of professionals in the US while he's in India, and he still has 1 more year to get to the US. So imagine how prepared this guy is going to be when he actually gets here. So that is my suggestion for all these international students. Prepare early. Start now, because the earlier you start, the better off you are.
Mm-hmm. So Gabriel, this question is directed to you because you are currently, one of the students who's unable to be here and is remotely in your home country. And how difficult, or what do you think are the challenges, or if you can give any advice for students who are facing the same situation as you, but how can they start networking, similar to what Samuel had mentioned? But if you have any advice for students stuck in their home country, unable to come here?
Yes. I think Sam mentioned as well, they should focus on things that they can control. They should not be focused on the issue that they cannot go back to the United States because the borders are closed, or something happened due to the pandemic. They should focus on stuff that they can really do something about it. So for international students, they are stuck in their home countries. I would say make sure you do your best in your online classes. You connect, keep networking with another international students, keep networking with American professionals, keep showing your work online, create or expand your personal brand. That's my advice for international students that are still in their home country. And also, this is a challenge for me as well. My English is kind of bad right now because I'm stuck in Brazil. I didn't have a lot of opportunities to speak English since I came here 5 months ago. So I would say for international students who are stuck in their home countries, make sure you practice your English and make sure you don't lose it, because it's gonna be very important for you when you land in the United States again. Communication is everything.
Right, and but thank you so much, both of you all. And both of you are international students, creating this amazing platform for international students. From your personal experience, if you could just say what was the biggest challenge that you faced. We can start with you, Samuel, and then we can, move to Gabriel's story, your journey. If you could talk a bit about your journey and how you got this idea to start Stephen Mentor.
I would say for me, I'm gonna answer like both questions. So a little bit of my journey, my biggest struggle, and how the idea came to be. Um, for me, the biggest struggle that I faced was adapting to the social life and the social norms in the U.S. And I wouldn't expect it to be that big of a challenge because I'm from a Western culture. Like Colombia is a pretty Western culture, but it was just very different. In the middle of Iowa, in the rural Midwest, it was kind of just the culture and the way people interact with each other was very different. So I'm used to be a very touchy person, huggy person, very outgoing, and here people are more reserved to themselves. And it's kind of that cultural assimilation and how to implement those assimilations to the cultural setting. That was very challenging. There was a few months that I felt super lonely. I felt super sad. I was missing home. So kind of struggling to make friends. That was really hard. And when it comes to the idea, I would say every is what we were talking about. Every international student struggles with language. Every international student struggles with social life, academic life. Every international student struggles with paperwork, finding a job, homesickness. All of these things, they're not exclusive to us. They're not exclusive to international students from India, Brazil, Colombia. They're everywhere. The only difference is that I don't know why it just clicked to me. I've been involved with startups since I was 17-ish. So I've been always in this world. And one day I was sitting with one of my professors. She was telling me about a research that she was doing with one of her students. The student that I was doing the research with was also an international student from Germany. And she was telling me, oh, we did a research on the challenges that international students have when it comes to writing in the US. It was super specific. It was just about writing and how international students struggle a lot to adapt to the way that Americans write in academic papers. That was actually a challenge that I faced as well. But yeah, she was saying, we did this research to understand the struggles of international students adapting to the writing style of the US. And when she said that, it just clicked to me. I was like, wait, it's not just writing. It's everything. It's culture, it's language, it's communication, it's friendships, it's academic system, it's job market, it's everything. I was like, whoa, we can teach the students how to write per se. We can teach them actually how to do the assimilation process. And I've done it and I can actually pass it on to other students. And there's a huge industry focus on bringing international students to the US, but there's almost nobody helping them once they get here. So that's when things clicked to me and I was like, okay, there's something to be done in this space. And then we just went on to start working on it. And here's where we're at. Not where we want to be yet. There's still a long way to go, but we have come a long way since that first day talking to my business professor, and that idea came to be. So hopefully we can still help many more international students, and in the future perhaps even immigrants, and in the future perhaps, I don't know, who knows what the future holds. But yeah, super excited to see what happens.
I'm sure you will, and we hope you guys make it big too. Gabriel, would you like to share your side of the story? How did you come about meeting Samuel, and how did your challenges as an international student, and how did you guys end up with Stephen Mentor?
Sure. So I during my whole life I always love it and like it to play soccer, to play sports. So when I first came to the United States, I came in as a student athlete. I was playing soccer. So doing my preparation back in Brazil, I saw like a lot of companies, a lot of organizations um, making a big effort on um, taking these students to the United States. Um, but once I got there, once I arrived in the United States, I saw that nobody was doing anything to help these international students once they arrived. So when I first arrived in the United States as a student athlete, I was more focused on the athletic side. And one of the biggest challenges for me was to adapt to the different academic system that they have here in the US. Is a lot different from the academic system back in Brazil. So once I was focused on the athletic side, I thought everything would be fine on the academic side. And when 5 months passed, and when I look at myself, I say, damn, there's something missing here on the academic side, and I'm not fully adapted. So I actually struggle a little bit with grades and managing how to thrive to this academic system. So this was a big challenge for me. But how did I met Sam? Is because I personally started to create a project to help student athletes adapt in the United States. Since I was a student athlete, I was focusing more on the student athletes. And I created this project when I was about to launch. I was contacted by Sam because Sam was also creating Steven. He was also starting this project to help international students. So once he contacted me and we talked, I saw that Steven Mentor was a bigger project than mine, not only to help international students, athletes, international students, but all international students from all over the world, not only Brazilians as well. So I saw it as a big opportunity for me to contribute, to collaborate with a lot of international students, and to help them adapt as I saw as an important thing that a lot of international students needed when they first arrived here.
That's a very interesting point you make, Gabriel, because that's a lesson out there for budding entrepreneurs, that how when you meet somebody who shares your passion and your dream, how to merge that together and then kind of go on the same journey. So you are already thinking of it. You thought Sam's journey was, or his vision was much bigger, and it made sense for you to fit into that vision. That's a lesson out there. Would you agree, Sam?
Totally. And even from a strategy perspective, for startup founders, I don't know. I would assume that if you're watching this and you're into startups, you have read book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You should read that book. Great book. One of the things that Peter Thiel says, is competition is for losers. So competition just takes away a lot of resources from you, divides the market, confuses the market. So when possible, avoid competition from a strategic perspective. Like if you are aligned with the person that you're about to compete with and none of you have a clear advantage over the other, might as well just do it together, go together, because if you go together, you're going to go further. So mostly if you align in mentality, if you get along with that person, go together, don't compete, and you will end up going a lot further rather than if you were to compete with each other.
Absolutely. And we know that both of you are international students. So Gabriel, would you happen to I'm just curious to know, how do you manage education and running a business? It must be hard in terms of prioritizing. So if there are students out there who have an idea during their college years, would it be a good start for them to build that idea right through their college years? So any advice for these upcoming entrepreneurs or those students who have ideas?
I think Sam mentioned before as well, start early, just go ahead and put your work out there, keep trying. And if you fail, try again. I like to say, when you go to the United States as an undergrad student, so you have 4 years to graduate. If you start a project in your freshman year, you got 4 years to build a company, a project from the scratch, and there's no such a pressure of the time of having to find a job or to I don't know. It's not like you are adult that you have children or you have a lot of responsibilities. You are just a college student, so you have the time, and also have the energy to put into a project, to put in a company that you can try your best. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of your time. It's going to take a lot of your energy. There's no, how can I say, there's no guarantee that you're going to succeed, but I would say start early, put your work out there. Don't be shy. Don't think that you don't know anything. Just start, and then the knowledge will start to come. And that's my advice, just make sure you start.
Absolutely. And I love, this is something that I wanted to check up when I first heard of Steven Mentor. So I went to the website. I love the personification of the entire experience. And, that's what you're calling as Steven. And I'm sure many of them will probably have the same question. Do either of you want to elaborate a bit more on, about Steven?
I think the name.
I think it always makes for an interesting story, and I'm pretty sure by now you would have been tired of explaining that to everyone a lot of times.
No, it is a funny story, and I don't know, it worked out better than we expected it to work out. But so the idea for Student Mentor kind of came to be based on that conversation that I had with my professor, and a week or 2 weeks later, I was participating in a startup weekend. For those of you guys who may not know what a startup weekend is, basically a hackathon for startups. You don't really build anything. You just build the concept of a company. But the idea is for you to go out, do customer discovery, talk to customers, and kind of do a basic pitch for a board of investors or board of judges, and you win money or whatever. So I was participating in a startup weekend, and we were working on the idea that would later become Steven. So when we were starting to sketch out the solution and kind of what we were working on, because we understood the problem, the challenge that international students face and whatnot, we were working on the solution, and I was it was kind of a funny moment. I was super inspired right around the whiteboard. We're gonna do this, and then this is gonna connect to this, and then we're gonna do this and this and this and this. And then I got to the end, and I was like, wait, we need a name. I looked to my left, my friend who was working with me, he's an international student as well from Bolivia, and I said, hey, we need a name. And I said, hey, give me a name. And he thought I was asking for a human name, like a name of a person. I was like, Steven. And I'm like, no, I need a company name. But then it's just resonated with me, Steven. And actually kind of as a joke, or kind of as an inside joke, for the startup weekend, we left the name Steven. Later on, when we actually decided to move on with this organization after the startup weekend, we realized that Steven was actually a good name. It was a good name because first, it is super easy to pronounce. And second, it was a way for us to give the mentor that we were creating instead of being a company, it is a person. So we don't want international students to feel like they're being guided by a company. We want international students to feel like they're guided by me, by Gabriel, by our mentors, by Steven as a person. They're guided by people, not guided by an organization, which is something that many international students feel like they are doing when they come to the US. An organization, an agency threw me in the US, but an actual person picked me up when I was here and took me and guided me through the process. So it turns out to be a really fun story. It's a really easy name to remember, Steven Mentor. And it is a personification of what we're trying to do, is a person guiding international students through their journey.
Well, thank you for going through that once again. And I'm sure you've had to do that multiple times throughout your journey. And so you mentioned earlier that you were involved with startups and businesses at a very young age. And, when do you think is a right time for all the young entrepreneurs or those who have ideas? When do you proceed with an idea? When do you know that those businesses in the past did not work and the current business is, work really well for you compared to the ones in the past? So when do you think would be a good time for people to move forward with the idea? Because you do invest a lot of time and energy and money to put that idea into practice and execute it.
That's such a hard question. So I want to reflect briefly on my own journey. One of the biggest, so when I first started, I started when I was 17. I was about to turn 18, and I had this idea for creating an app that would connect travelers with nonprofits in the places that they visit, so that the travelers could visit the nonprofits could get funds and whatever. It was kind of a marketplace for nonprofits and socially conscious travelers. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no clue about anything related to startups. No clue about development, no clue about design, no clue about the lean model, no clue about anything. Like nobody taught me anything. Like I was just, okay, we're gonna make this happen. How? Let's figure it out. So I spent I don't want to say spend, but I invested per se 2 years or so into that idea until I was 19. As soon as I came to the US, as soon as I got here when I was 18, the first thing that I did was look for a professor in design that could help me at least design the app. Because all that I knew is that I was working with a friend that knew how to code, so I was going to design the app and he was going to be the coder. Turns out later on I became the coder, but anyways, I was okay, I need to design the app. So I went and talked to this professor. He was a design professor. He walked me through the whole process of design, which ended up teaching me a lot about design. I then ended up meeting a few startup organizations, which ended up teaching me a lot about customer discovery and strategy and business development. So it was a learning process. And even though that startup never came to be and we never even created that app, just the learning that I had with that experience was huge for both business, generally speaking, but also for the startups. So in my case, since I didn't know anything, the right moment to start was there, right at the moment, because I was like, okay, I didn't know it at the time, but the learning curve that I had about startups up until that point was huge. And when I finally had the maturity to drop that idea, because I acknowledged that it wasn't going anywhere, I was way better equipped to move on with the next company that was Steven Mentor. And now Steven Mentor is equally teaching me a lot of lessons. And if we end up deciding in the future, in the future, that we are not going to follow through with the Steven Mentor, I am way better equipped right now than what I was when I first started at Steven Mentor. So I would say, if you don't find anyone around you to teach you how to do these kind of things, start right away, because the best teacher is going to be the actual act of having a startup. However, if you find organizations in the US, even my startup TV is a great initial resource, like actually hearing from other entrepreneurs and understanding what it is. At the time when I started my first idea, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I had just vague ideas. I didn't even understand that the world of the startups was an actual thing. So if you find an organization, a fellowship, an accelerator, or anything like that that has introductory programs to the world of startups, I would really recommend you going through those, because if you have the chance to go through an intensive startup program of 3 months, you will be ahead of me by a year per se. Because in 3 months in a program like this, you will learn what it took me a year and a half, 2 years to learn with my first failed startup. So I would say find people who can teach you. If you can't find people to teach you, then start something right away. I would say that those are my two advices on how to start, because the learning curve, mostly when you're starting from scratch, is pretty big.
Right, absolutely. Gabriel, do you have an experience from the past where you have a similar experience with businesses or startups and you thought maybe that was a good idea and then it wasn't successful and now it's Steven Mentor, it's very different?
Rebecca, to be honest with you, Steven Mentor is the first startup that I'm working with. As I mentioned before, I was thinking about creating my own project, but at that time, I didn't even look at that project as a startup but yeah, I don't have any previous experience before Steven with startups and business in general.
That's pretty fine. But I also have another question to you, Gabriel. With how important, compared to similar to what Steven Mentor is doing, right? So how important it is for an international student to have a peer community, because as both of you have shared your experiences, you did feel that you were left alone when you came here for the first time, and it's difficult to adapt to different situations. But similar to your story, how important is it for an international student to have a peer community, and how can that also relate, for example, for you to, if you want to start an idea, if you want to build an idea in the future, how important is it to have a community to support you or help you get through that?
Yeah, I think a community of peers is definitely very, very important, mostly for international students. As we mentioned before, we all live the same struggles, experience, lack of the English, the language, the communication, academic system. We all share a lot of the same struggles. We all have a lot of the same issues. So when we have a community um, of people who are living the same thing that you are living, but maybe are um, looking to this experience, to that problem with different eyes and share this different perspectives, is definitely very important for you to overcome this challenge, to get ideas, and um, to support each other and to be successful. So I would say a community of international students are definitely very, very important for any international students who pretend to come to the United States, who want to come here, or who's already here. They definitely gonna find some help in the community. So that's why I think Stephen is very, very important for all international students in America.
And I would even make the link of the community to the startup side. Building a startup is so hard. It's ups and downs, and there are days that you're like, heck yeah, we're in the right direction, and then you're like, what the heck are we doing? So it's like it's ups and downs all the time. So it is super hard if you don't have a community to support you. So we are fortunate enough to be part of this startup community called Future Founders. We are currently going through one of their programs called the Fellowship Program. It's a 1 year long program, and their community is just absolutely amazing. And I would even say that Steven Mentors wouldn't be where it's at if it wasn't for Future Founders and the Future Founders community. The resources, the introductions, the help, the everything. Like every time that I have a problem, I feel like I have someone that I can talk to from that community. I have a problem with finances. I don't know how to do finances. I know I can talk to somebody. I have a problem with customer discovery, strategy, survey development, raising money, customer management, whatever it is, there's someone in the community who may be able to help me or point me in the right direction. So having that community to support you emotionally and also with like social capital is so helpful, because honestly, now that I have that community of future founders, I cannot imagine how hard it must be to be a founder or a founder and a co-founder, and you face a problem and you don't have anybody to talk to. So that having that community is just essential. I would dare to claim that there is no way for a startup founder to succeed if they don't have a support community. It doesn't have to be official, but it just needs to be a network of mentors. Otherwise, it's impossible because you don't have all the answers. Your co-founder doesn't
Right.
have all the answers. So you need other people with you in the journey.
Absolutely, very well said. And thank you so much for both of you all for sharing your inspirational journeys. Is there anything else that you want to share?
Um, I would just say that the experience of being an international student and being a founder are pretty similar. So they may be lonely, they may be uh, challenging, they may drive you crazy sometimes. Doing both at the same time is something even harder. But I would just say it is rewarding at the end, both being a startup founder and both being an international student. On the startup founder side, you get to talk to very brilliant people. You get to build something that serves a community that hopefully you care about. You get to, who knows, even make a lot of money. And from the international student side, you get to meet people from all over the world. You get to travel to places. You get to see different cultures. So I just want to say that nothing good in life comes without a fight, right? So being an international student and having all these connections and being in a different country and having all these great experiences, it's not easy. You know, it's hard. We're saying I was super sad when I came here. I struggled a lot. Gabriel also struggled a lot. Being a founder, um, serving a community, working on something that you want, having the freedom to work whenever you want, whatever you want from all of those don't come for free. You know, that's also the struggle of building something, not knowing if you're in the right track, failing a lot. So yeah, everything good in life comes through a fight, and the sooner you start fighting, the better you'll find yourself in a good place. So get going.
Yeah, um, beautiful words, Sam.
I
I would
agree.
say, I would say, um, putting again startups, international students, you start early. You know, even if you don't know um, what you're doing and where you're going, just start, talk to people, ask questions, communicate. Um, that's the best way that you got. That's the best way to succeed. both as international student or as a startup founder. And I also want to thank you guys, Mars Startup TV, Rebecca, um, and you as well in India for having us here. Um, we are very thankful for the invite. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do you have any message for my startup TV viewers watching the video?
I do. I just want to hop in and actually make the point that we were talking about this at the beginning of the call. They were explaining to us a little more of the focus of my startup TV. And I think it's so cool that if you're watching mainstream media, the only type of startup news that you get is this company raised $500 billion or $500 million, and now they're evaluated at $3 billion. You're like, for a startup founder of a company that's super tiny, you look at that, you're like, whoa, what, like, such a huge discrepancy, right? And it doesn't even have to be mainstream media, even like in startup outlets, people just talk about the big players. The thing that you don't realize is that there's a lot of smaller players doing very important work in the ground and helping very small communities. So we're one of the few startups in the world of international students helping international students. We potentially change the lives of some of the students that we have worked with, but we don't get that space in the news. We don't get those highlights of, hey, look at the work these guys are doing. So I really love the concept of My Startup TV because they actually go and highlight some of those people who are doing what a lot of people would say is smaller work, or who are early in the process but are already doing great things to serve people, great things to serve communities. So I really appreciate the fact that they are focusing on early stage companies rather than the unicorns, as many other sort of outlets do. So that is something really awesome, and just use it, and if you're thinking about starting a company, you've seen a bunch of founders going through some of the My Startup TV programs. So just watch, learn, talk to them if possible, and use this as a resource for your startup journey.
My Startup TV and Steven have a lot in common, I think. We all trying to fight for the minority, give space for the ones who have less attention in the media or in the startup world or even in the educational world. So I believe My Startup TV and Steven are connected somehow, helping these minorities and helping give this attention to the people who actually need it. So it's very nice to see that.
Beautifully put, Gabriel and Samuel. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you so much to the My Startup TV India team for joining us this late night. We love that you are sharing your inspirational journeys with us. We really hope to see you fulfill your long-term vision of revolutionizing the international care and immigration. Such an amazing progress, changing lives. And we hope you bring in incredible change to the lives of millions of immigrants once across the
TV.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Have a great day.